So good morning, everybody. Today's Business Spotlight is with Valerie Keefe from Clarity, Vision and Purpose Consulting. Valerie, you're very welcome. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Tom. Lovely to be here.
Well, tell us, all the audience here, what is it you do and how long have you been doing it?
Well, Tom, I've set up Clarity VP Consulting Limited 10 years ago now. Before that, I had a career in banking and finance. Really enjoys that actually, but I always had this kind of compelling draw to kind of jump out and set up my own small business. So even through the recession, I took that leap of faith and set up Clarity VP. Really pleased with, delighted with the way it has evolved over the last 10 years. So I suppose in terms of looking after, what do I look at? What do I do, right? So I'm a management consultant and I focus on three main areas. One is to do with strategy, anything with strategy planning, organizational design, that kind of thing. The second area is around delivering transformational change, so getting the more teams involved in how that looks, touch, feel. And the third area is anything to do with leadership and change management. So again, the people side. Do a lot of work with senior leaders, CEOs, and delighted to do so. So I have a lovely cadre of clients from the corporate world right across to SMEs, to public sector, and wonderful team, 14 panelists that work with me as well on the team. So delighted to have that team around me as well, which is really key.
So typically you say you're currently working in more corporate field, whatever, having come from a corporate background. Yeah. So what, as a matter of interest, when you get in there, what do you see or what do you find out in the early phases as to be the biggest challenge they face?
Well, it's interesting because, there are some, I suppose, common themes that are emerging, certainly over the last number of years. I would believe that, certainly when engaging with clients, a huge amount is around talent. It's around talent retention or indeed talent acquisition. It's supporting leaders leading the people side even better. It's supporting leaders being at their best and maximizing their potential. So sometimes the challenge will be around that people side. So technically brilliant, or, the product is brilliant, but it's that people side. So it's around that talent management piece is really a big challenge, I think, and going to continue to be even more so this year. So that comes out a lot in a lot of meetings that I have with clients. Another piece would be around, competitiveness and staying strong over the next 2 to 3 years on strategic planning, especially with the cost of living and all the other different areas that have really affected large and smaller businesses. So when I get into the planning piece, it's really interesting to look at where the economy is going and then to see how can they, counteract that or maximize the opportunity that will be there, but also dealing with risk and that making sure they balance in terms of their plans going forward. So it can be any number of things, but typically they're the kind of things that I come up against when I'm meeting clients.
And obviously your financial background would help in the languaging that you would share with some of these business leaders who mightn't necessarily have that knowledge to hand.
Yeah, exactly. And I just don't believe in things being overly complicated or complex either. Yeah. So I'm a great believer in just keeping things reasonably simple. And I believe at the end of the day that when you're planning ahead, there are two things. First of all, it's about, it's very important to give that sense of direction for the team around the trajectory of where the business needs to go and keep that simple, but also leading yourself. And I think it's very important as we go and move ahead into the future over the next 2 to 3 years, that leaders don't forget that there's an opportunity for leaders to lead themselves first. Actually, it's easier, I think, in my experience, to follow a leader that knows where they're going themselves. Never mind the strategic plan. So it's and people will connect with people. So the plan is one thing, but that leadership piece, I think, is very exciting to see where leaders might go over the next 2 to 3 years.
I always think it's interesting definition of what a leader is against what a boss is. And my coach's coach, when I first started this, asked me, so what was I when I had my previous businesses? And the coaches don't ask questions for no reason. And I knew he knew the answer, I knew the answer, but I didn't want to answer it because the answer was, yeah, I was a boss. Yeah. Now, that means you're not a good leader. So, but I have learned from that because I didn't really understand it initially. So when you go into businesses, a lot of business owners feel they have to have all the answers and they don't. And that's the interesting point about it, I think, to share. So that's what you bring to the table to them as well, presumably.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. When you think about when you're working with somebody that has a capacity and also a hunger to learn and to be open to new suggestions, I think that's when you can really unlock some really interesting conversations, but also that potential for the person. There's a great guru that I follow that I'm a big fan of called Robin Sharma, and he talks about the more informed you are, the better decisions you make. And the better decisions you make, the better results you get. So if
it's a bit like Jim Rohn's, work harder on yourself than you do at your job.
Yeah, and like if you're informed about a subject matter, or even more informed about yourself, or being a little bit more informed with getting feedback around that self-awareness piece, the chances are, in terms of that trajectory of growth or where you want to go and your ambition, is that you'll make a better decision. And if you make a better decision based on feedback and you want to be even more sharp or more focused, more relevant, you probably will get a better result. So, but it's that openness to feedback and that openness and willingness to recognize you don't have to have all the answers, and you can actually really move ahead even with more gusto with getting a good coach or somebody that can help and support you map what that place, that trajectory looks like. And
you've got to want more to start with anyway, because if you don't want, if there's something you don't want, if you don't have a journey you want to go on with, then where are you going?
Well, I think as well, there's, it's a missed opportunity, because I think life is important that, we work long hours, right, every day, that you maximize the opportunities that are in front of you. But sometimes people need a hand to map out what that looks like. Sometimes we can, including myself, I've been under the bonnet too much, or I've had good coaches and mentors myself over the years. In order to even jump out, I needed a mentor, a really good mentor, to help me to move out of that corporate, security, a pensionable job. So it's that sense sometimes you need a helping hand to map things out, and that can be really enlightening when that happens then. And it's lovely that when you see a client saying, oh my goodness, yes, brilliant, why wouldn't you go for that? And so it's really interesting.
And it's not as if you grew up knowing what to do next. You go through life experiences, and when you walk into a company that you've experienced, having come from the sectors, that you can bring some value to them. So tell me, the big C word, COVID came along for a few years and disrupted everything, and has continued to disrupt in a very positive way, I feel, actually, at the end of the day. But were there many changes, or any changes that you had to make and then continue to retain those in your way you operate moving forward?
Well, it's a good question, Tom. I mean, during COVID, certainly in that time, I had I've one daughter, Rebecca, was doing the Leaving Cert, or wasn't doing the Leaving Cert, and things paused there in that March. We all remember that very well. So certainly for me, some of the projects were paused a little bit, because I honestly felt that some of the clients, and indeed a lot of, including ourselves, we had to really come to terms with what's this about? What does it mean? Some people kind of found that they needed to go into a room and close the door and just, just to recalibrate. And that was fine. That was no problem. I totally understood that. So I believe for myself, I had to stand back. And I had to look and see, right, okay, what, they use the word pivot a lot in small business. And certainly for me, I felt that there has to be an opportunity here for me. What's the opportunity now, as opposed to thinking, oh, doom and gloom, or, and that could happen. And it can happen very quickly to all of us. So I had to kind of pivot myself fairly quickly. And you know what I started doing, Tom? I started going back to writing. So I started writing about resilience, right? Because I had to remind myself that I had to stay strong. And then I published those articles. And within 3 weeks, only 3 weeks, the business started to it started to really open up again. Because
wow.
Yeah, because what I was doing a lot on that people side was that people needed the reassurance or needed some support and help. And like yourself,
engaging.
So the technology certainly helped. I did an awful lot of stuff, like yourself, I'm sure, and a lot of all your viewers there. We used technology and we got up to speed in that. And as you said, there were opportunities there to actually, push ourselves out of the comfort zone, and for us to learn the new technologies, but also learning how to deliver messages in a slightly different way. And reading more. I think reading is a game changer. And I think we've become a generation of distracted with devices. And don't get me wrong, we love the devices and they're great as well. And obviously using devices now. But seriously, I got, again, and I still have a mentor who's a professor in Trinity, Professor Jim Quinn, and he's been my mentor for the last number of years. And before that, I had a fabulous mentor called Tom Savage, who you probably would have met Tom over the years. He's dead a couple of years now, 6 years. But he always said to me as well, Valerie, if you want to be world-class, surround yourself with world-class people. So that part of that COVID was to ensure, to remind myself to have a really great circle of influencers and mentors, not just those guys, but also, you know, the other people that helped me to stay strong during that time. And so it was fascinating. So I saw it as an opportunity, Tom, as I'm sure you did too.
But yeah, well, from that perspective, like we're all human, and you know, we've all had failings in our life, which is what you learn from. But I think COVID gave us the guts of 3 years of opportunity. Our lives changed, our habits changed. But as you said, my clients have learned a lot more because they had time, because they weren't traveling Dublin to Cork or Dublin to Limerick or wherever it was. They had time. I had time, and I kind of set my goals and everything else. And you had your book a week, a book a month, whatever works for people, or audio books, whatever it is. And it's amazing when you hear something, you know, does it really resonate with you? Yeah, I get that. Really? So people buy from people. Yeah, bloody obvious. Okay, no, but do you really get what I'm saying here? Because it goes so much deeper. So what are you doing to help your business deal with the people who want to buy with you? And you dig in. But when you learn a little nugget, it's amazing how it can transform your team, your side of your business, you as a person, etc.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you there. And I think that, you know, every day we can, if we allow ourselves to, and we're busy, because after this, you've loads of things to do, I've loads of things to do. But if you allow yourself to observe and stay curious, I think curiosity is a massively important part of all of our psyche, and you will find a little gem. But sometimes we're too busy being busy that we lose that opportunity too. And that might be, I'm going to cancel that coffee with somebody, or I'm going to cancel that meeting with the staff member this morning because a client is very important. Don't get me wrong, clients make our paydays possible, right? But at the same time, you know, investing in the connections, the relationships is really key, internally and externally. And certainly as I look ahead even towards where, you know, the next couple of months, clients will really need to kind of really make those connections even more consistent internally, actually, externally fine, but internally maximizing what they're doing.
Isn't that funny? I'm sure you come across it as well, Valerie, that culture 10 years ago, what did it mean? You know, some people use it, and then 5 years ago, people were talking about it, but did they really understand it? And right now, no matter what size a client, no matter how small or how large, I can find out with 2 questions what the culture is in that business is by talking to 1 or 2 of the owners. And when you find the majority of cases, there isn't one. And that's kind of frightening. And they're saying, oh, we can't keep staff, we can't find staff. And you kind of say, I think I know the answer why. So it's an interesting one. It's an interesting, but culture is something that I think everybody needs to be more conscious of. And what does it mean? What does it actually mean? You know,
and it takes a while for that to manifest, doesn't it? Because you know, I've equally like yourself, you can walk into any business and walk the floor in 30 seconds, you'll pick it up. Yeah. Is it a kind of open plan? Is it not? Is there a bit of laughter going on, or is it not? Is it very serious? You know, or everybody in offices, or you know, that engagement piece, you pick it up pretty quickly. But certainly working on culture programs over the years as well with clients, and indeed, you know, in the bank, in corporate banking, we had a really good initiative going on about culture. So it wasn't just forced. There was a number of, you know, there were a number of support mechanisms there to ensure the culture was maintained or enhanced. So things like having values programs, and the behaviors that underpin the values were very explicit. There were kind of values discussions that took place. So it wasn't just vague or woolly, or all these great, you know, values up around. You know, we worked hard, and it was part of my team's remit at the time to ensure that it kept, you know, that it was enhanced and it evolved over time. But you know, I think that sometimes people have this perception, oh, we've got the values in the wall, that's the culture done. You know, it's very interesting, as you say, if certain behaviors are tolerated and that becomes the norm, then it's very hard for new joiners to kind of, it jars with people because they're thinking, on one hand, we're saying that, but on the other hand, this is being rewarded. So culture, it's such a fascinating topic, but there are ways to get around it, and there are ways you know, to put in place culture programs that aren't seen as vague and woolly, that they are aligned to the business is key.
I could talk to you on this subject for quite a bit. I can see we have a bit of synergy there, but it's really interesting, and it's very, I think, frustrating. And even for the audience here today, you know, culture is such an important thing for many, many reasons. Even the simplest ones are, do you want to retain your staff? As Valerie mentioned a minute ago. Do you want to get new staff? Why would they want to work for you?
Yeah.
How would
Very
you answer that question?
good. Mm.
Interesting. Anyway, moving on. Tell me, what did we say, Valerie, the biggest learning that you personally have got since you became a business owner once you stepped outside the corporate arena?
Well, first of all, it was around, staying confident, being authentic. I'd like to think I was authentic when I worked in the corporate world and carrying that forward, making real relationships, genuine relationships and connections. And I remember, when I sat on the other side of the table, the person who came in front of me that really wanted to make me feel better or be better in my role and support me in that endeavor, not just to win the gig.
Yes.
They always stood out. I think you can spot that. And I'd like to think then as I moved out, that was a learning for me, was just to continue to be who I was, but to grow, develop as a leader. I also, in the last couple of years, I went back studying at night time again. I actually, investing in myself was a big learning as well. And, to learn from the clients and learn from the team. So that piece of learning, staying confident, being authentic was a big learning for me, but also something that was lovely to know that I didn't have to change or be something I didn't feel comfortable being. So that was a big learning. And the second thing was, once you start to develop and deliver for clients, the word of mouth was very strong for me, thank goodness, right? So that sense of, I thought I might have had to market a huge amount, which I still have to market. We all have to do that, understand. But I got lovely referral business from clients who I was very humbled to get, connections from other people. And I found that was very big learning as well, that so being yourself really was key. And that's lovely, because I think it's very hard to be somebody you're not, and it's exhausting. So,
but isn't that true? Well, you're very obviously only in your early 30s. So what advice would you give to an 18-year-old you?
18-year-old me is to just enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey, and not to be too I'm a big believer in I study a bit around motivation. Sometimes we're so caught up in the extrinsic motivation, where you want the promotion, or you want the badge, which are really important, certainly at different stages. But actually, as you evolve and grow, and it's that intrinsic motivation which is key. So mastery, learning, feeling empowered, enjoying what you're doing. And if the 18-year-old me, I was doing a music degree, musician, and I ended up banking and finance, probably because I had a great mentor, my mother, who said it's a permanent pensionable job. But I think looking back, so that piece around just enjoying it a little bit more, and I think and not to be afraid as well to move jobs. I know that back in the day, right, the psychological fit there, and you're the job for life. But I think I'm loving that about millennials and the younger guys coming through. They're not taking it as seriously perhaps as I did at 18, and I love that, because they're going to enjoy it maybe even more, and not to be finding that you're stuck in a role or a job or an industry that you're just not that happy in. And don't be afraid to reach out for help and support. And
isn't that just huge, when you look back to the days when, you went to school, you went to college, you got a job for 40 years, and you went home, watched television, you died. Yeah. I mean, that's what it was. Isn't that terrible? I want my grandparents and stuff. But it's all changed now. It really has changed. But we all have a choice, not choices. We have a choice.
Yeah. And it's tricky. Sometimes you have to take back control. And sometimes you can be bobbing along on someone else's agenda, which is fine. But taking back control, I think for me, is very important. And also with my clients, that you take a breath and you think, I need to take a little bit back control here and recalibrate and maybe reset the compass slightly. And that's really helped me over the last number of years as well. And to make sure that, you stay strong and confident and enjoy what might lie ahead. But that control piece is important, because this is all you can control. You can't control the economy or somebody coming into work with a bad hair day, right? But you can control how you engage, or I always say communicate or influence there, this piece. But you can't, so not to be hard on yourselves, but take back control as leaders. And especially, as we go through the next couple of months of maybe a few more bumps in the road, Tom, I don't know about you, there will be more bumps, but it's key.
Look, there's always something. There's a COVID, there's a war, there's a Ukraine, there's always something going to be out there. It's never going to be perfect. No. So listen, just to finish up here for our audience, can you just give them an example of a typical type of client that you would like to work with?
Well, as I say, Tom, at the outset, to me, the industry and corporate versus SME or public sector, I really enjoy working with leaders and teams that know they need to change. They need to either write a new strategy, or they need to kind of, align themselves even more tightly to the goals of the company, and they need, a little bit of help there on how that might look like. So it's people and the teams that want to kind of, have an appetite to do something a little bit different. I'll do small touch, light touch, or deep dive, whatever. And I have a team of experts that are able to help the human side of change.
You have a team as well. So roughly speaking, are we talking 3+, 10+, 50+? What would be your ideal
to work with? Or
as in a number of employees in the companies?
Oh, I'm working with companies with everything from 5 employees up to like 2,000 or 3,000 more, probably.
Fantastic. So guys, open to all sorts of sizes. No, we're getting away with. So if you'd like to have a word with Valerie O'Keefe, you can go on to sorry, I forget your website. What is the website that
www.clarityvp.ie, and it's Valerie@clarityvp.ie. If you want to contact me, I'd be delighted to talk to any of your viewers. And thank you so much again, Tom.
By the way, pleasure. Clarityvp.ie. Clarityvp.ie. Valerie, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think you and I could have a conversation for many hours to come. Really enjoyed doing it. Thank you so much indeed. I wish you every success in your endeavors.
No problem. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.